Peace, peace. Peace, man. It's been a minute. I want y'all to see the masterpiece. It's one of my favorites. Um, Give honor to source. Um, Clap it up for yourself. Clap it up for yourself. Where you are on your journey. Nobody could have done it more better than you know what I'm saying. Clap it up. I want to center this. Clap it up for yourself. Um, Give honor to source, to our ancestors, known and unknown, those that came before us. You know, right now we're in a very pivotal moment. We doing it, y'all. Really clap it up for yourself. So again, wow, I don't even know where to start, but at the same moment, it's like I do, but it's like wow, it has been a very, you could say, turbulent, emotional, purging. I'm sure collectively we all could like or have felt this or see like, oh my gosh, I want to get that masterpiece. Like I really love. I'm very strategic on like my background and stuff, but yeah, this topic right now. My mic position good. Okay. Man, let me tell y'all, I'm just so honored. Uh, yeah, I probably will stop and give me some tea in a minute, but this topic right now. Oh man, wow. I myself have been going through so much purging, self realizations, really learning what is so valuable to me. Learning more importantly my own self value. Learning more importantly my self worth. Being more self compassionate. You know, things I've talked about, how even learning now how to navigate my emotions, navigate my anger, rage, frustration, pain, most importantly. And me coming to the self realization, like, it hit me the other day. I was like, yo, I don't think I ever had, well, honestly, if I could give a percentage, it's like now being where I am presently, establishing foundations of wholesome exchanges, genuine love, wholesome, exchanges between people, other human beings. And when I say that's been a process, when I didn't realize how much the verbal abuse young affected me now, you're talking about, imagine like seeds being planted in your mind for so long and trying to escape through whether substance abuse, relationships, because of not seeing your true innate value. So it's been a very painful yet ever changing emotional purge or rebirth. It's like going through like a rebranding of my life, reinventing, recreating, reestablishing foundations, weeding out relationships and people who you've grown to love so dearly and so much to where you had to accept and let go of, not just them, the version of yourself. And so for me, one of the things that really stuck out to me, because lately, again, it's like now trying to implement this, really that, this self value and implement this self compassion for myself. It's really highlighting that I stand up in my truth, that I stand for myself, and however that looks, wherever dynamic relationship it's more so um, illuminating around what no longer serves me, or you know what is really valuable, and how that value system reflects my internal value system. So what I'm speaking about is, you know, a thought occurred or some things came to me about previous relationships, even with myself and other people. But most importantly, one stemming back to where, again, my childhood. And what really highlighted for me was how I never, you know, not to say I haven't ever, but experienced, you know, I spoke about conflict driven environments, but it really didn't hit me until I was like, wow, hold on. Have I ever been spoken to in a wholesome way? You know, like really affirmed from women that look like me, really affirmed that I am beautiful, I am brilliant. Not just from a external, like, oh, you fine or you're beautiful, you're attractive. Like really speaking to my soul, really speaking into me, like really pouring into me. And so what I realized, I was like, wow, it really brought me to tears. Like I've been going through so much purging, or it really has highlighted where I was not loved, or where I did not receive the love, the affirmation, or the security emotionally, the genuine love. It really is like right now, a stage of my life, this phase has really been highlighting where I did not. The more I love and cherish and honor myself, it really, the polarity of that, for those of you that don't know, it really highlights where you did not receive um certain nourishment in your life. And for me, on my journey, what was very important for me is how much mental illness or a mental disorder that I developed through my childhood development. How much of a, mental crisis, mental warfare, spiritual warfare, dealing with the women that I experienced at a very young age, the men and so forth. But most importantly, the matriarchal aspect. And now seeing how important it is, like with my healing now, like to see how vital that is for me to face those things and to actually realize like how much it has really shown me how much of the internal rage and pain and anger that I've had and have been suppressing for so long. And then to see how that reflects my relationships and see how me just trying to brush things aside, how they say be the bigger person, or me just stepping in a place or really disregarding how I really felt and not really telling people how I really felt, what I was hurt by, being that what I've experienced, the behavior pattern that I developed. And, I feel a lot of us are facing that or will face that in the coming years, or probably a lot of us collectively have or will in the coming, however that is divinely orchestrated, and however that unfolds. But for me, it really highlighted a lot of the emotional abandonment and the neglect. So, let me check on, well, I don't think it's hot yet, but um, when I'm really seeing how important it is to see my value, I realized that I was not around a lot of people who saw their value, who knew the importance of integrity, walking in authenticity, genuinely loving themselves or aspect or accepting those versions of themselves that, again, that I realized just being in those environments, how much it affected me mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and so forth. And so a lot of things have been coming up, and I was just like, hold on, what? Sometimes that's the thing about the healing journey. You think you're past something, or you think that you can assume that for so many years that, oh, this happened, and you don't even realize as you're healing or proclaiming to be a healer, shadow work, or whatever it is, things that you're facing that most people or that aren't concerned about, because their day-to-day routine or habits, they're still just going to work and doing this, and have no idea, like, for me, how much that did to me mentally as a man that's trying to progress, that's trying to find his way, that's trying to balance out his life, to believe and know that his life is progressing and prospering. And so you're talking about years of being around from childhood narcissistic people, or people who are gaslighting you, or people who are purposely or intentionally abusing you. Things that really came up in regards to, like, being seen, because no one knows your internal battle, but being seen or viewed as a pawn, if you're not viewed as something that's valuable. So it's like, seems like you're a pawn in a game. And so, um, how basically the reason I'm using that analogy is, like, even, things I've talked about before, like how, let's say my mom, the child support thing, a lot of things coming full circle in the awareness of, like, okay, let me see this from both sides. Let me see this from all sides. Let me see how the fact of that, why did my father make the decision to depart, and then what justified his behavior. Then me as a man trying to, a little boy at the time, trying to grasp that, idea of, like, okay, well, what about me? Or what about me growing up with a father or someone who can relate and help me balance out this life, instead of, why did you make that decision? Then let alone, why did my mom make that decision? A lot of things to where, again, places a man, him, in a position where, something he cannot really escape until, because, you know, this paperwork, all these things that play a role into his liberation, his freedom, and then, his pride or whatever it is, not wanting to deal with, the mother. And so it's like a lot of things still come up or can come up around that when you are trying to be a caregiver or a parent. And these things, these emotions comes up to where you're like, well, why wasn't this person here? And then now you're having to face these things within yourself, and what, where do you draw the line? Do you still interact? Do you try to, how do you cope? And again, we're not shown or taught these things, because again, our development and how we develop our behavior patterns from our mothers and our fathers or caregivers or people who have been around. You're talking about being in the presence of people who are either bitter, angry at themselves, never forgiven themselves, never accepted what has happened years ago with this person. So they're still replaying this in their mind. They're, trying to, don't know how to get out of it. And so their pattern is not realizing whether they know it intentionally or not, or whether they're intentionally doing it. Because sometimes people intentionally, you know, we want to believe or be naive that, like, they're not intentionally to do this to cause pain. But yes, some people do. And I can see that when it comes to how it affects the man, how it affects the woman in a long run, how most importantly it affects the child. And a lot of us have been affected by things like that now into our adulthood, or into, we believing that it's just about physically obtaining certain things, but disregarding your emotions, but disregarding your spiritual well-being, your mental well-being, and so forth. I'm going to grab something. I need to drink something. So, me speaking about these things that really internally, again, I can't tell you how to process it. No one can really tell me what I've been processing. Men, we're typically more practical and logical. So most of the time, I'm speaking from my perspective. We're going to be focused on, reflect on the past and, try to figure out, depending on where you are, figure out, like, how it is I can create a better future, or, self improvement. So that being said, a lot of how I develop my emotional intelligence is having to have these experiences from my own wounded place and wounded women, or people who have been wounded, whether in feminine or masculine aspect. So through that development, I realized, I'm like, wow, I when I really reflect on my childhood, most of my childhood until my now, early 30s, it's like I haven't really heard from a lot of women, you know, had really a lot of wholesome conversations. Not to say I didn't have some, but most of what I've experienced, and you're talking about traumatically being around people who don't know how to speak to someone with respect. So I really haven't, a lot of us as men haven't really been in environments, men and women, but been in environments where we were spoken to holistically, or we were poured into with love. A lot of us, well, myself, you growing up in emotional, abusive, and neglectful environments. Women who treat each other, who use each other, and it's very messy. Is they treat each other with no respect. And so then your sons, and then you see that, and it's like it affects everyone. There was someone who spoke about that, how, the woman can harm, or destroy people with her mouth, and the man can destroy with his actions. So a lot of that again entails or speaks about how much we have been programmed to believe like this is the way we're supposed to treat each other. This is the way that a man and woman is supposed to interact or engage, or have an exchange. And it's the total opposite of that. You're talking about being in environments where there was no harmony, there was no peace. These things were not at the top of the list of being valuable or being like an asset. So um, when you're around or in environments where people don't see themselves as an asset, then you're in an environment where you're seen as a liability. And when people are more focused externally on things and don't see the value in people or themselves, then you yourself, again, whether you know it intentionally or not, or unconsciously, you're a liability, to them. So